Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fallon. I'm a CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart, yes, the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. Been involved in generative AI since 2016 and just love it because it's changing the world. With that, I'd like to introduce Monika Górska. Monika is an attorney at law. She advises her clients on trademark, copyright, and unfair competition and process concerning commercializations of knowledge, intellectual property. She worked for Polish and foreign clients operating in various sectors of the economy in areas such as new technologies, pharmaceuticals, and IT. So with that, I'd like to bring Monika. Hi, Monika. How are you today?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. Now, how's everything in Warsaw? Are you in Warsaw today?
Yes, I'm in Warsaw today. Yes.
How's everything in Warsaw?
Everything's fine. The weather is good, which is always a nice thing.
And so, to be an attorney, so you went down through and, you have a doctor of philosophy degree. Did you need that to become an attorney? Or was that in addition to being an attorney?
No, that was just an addition. I did in Europe, in Poland, how it works is obviously you have to graduate from a 5-year university course or university, and then you have a 4-year vocational training or bar training, and while I was doing my attorney at law or legal training, I also decided to do PhD.
You
just
like
to
study, huh?
Sorry?
You just like to study.
Yes, and I think the topic that I chose for my dissertation, for the doctoral dissertation, as we call it here in Poland, I think it was very interesting. At that time, I wrote the dissertation in 2006, and it was about the Microsoft decision, the decision that was issued by the European Commission against Microsoft for refusing to share interoperability information and data with suppliers. So it was really interesting. At that time, it was a very groundbreaking, I'd say, decision because it was for the very first time, I think, the European Commission really looked into intersection between the competition law, the intellectual property, and also the economy in a larger sense. So so it was quite interesting and also challenging. But
so you did your Master of Arts in Law first, then you went. So did you go for an LLM right after? So as a Master of Arts, is that different than the LLM degree? Because here the LLM and the master's degree are generally the same, right?
No, so in Europe, in Poland in particular, you finish your university like after 5 years. What you are a Master of Arts, MA, in law or in any other field. But what you can do is a 1-year sort of course, let's call it, 1-year program, which then you are awarded an LLM. And I did that at the College of Europe, which is a renowned institution. It's been around, let's say, for I think almost 60 or 70 years. It was established, I think, in the 50s, just around the time when the European Union was formed. And basically, the College of Europe is the school, let's say, for EU officers, EU members of parliament, but also for EU enthusiasts, let's call it like that, because obviously it's a deep dive into the EU legislation and foundation of EU and all things European Union. So it was also a very interesting time. But I think I have to credit College of Europe for actually sparking my interest in competition law, and that's the origin story of my doctoral thesis, because at College of Europe I met some fascinating.
What is a College of Europe? Where is that located?
It's in Belgium. It's in, depending on how you pronounce it, it's in Bruges, which would be the let's say French pronunciation, or Brugge, which would be probably more Flemish pronunciation. But it's in Belgium. It's nearby Brussels.
And which language did you learn in? Was it in English or
Belgian?
Belgian?
No, because both. I think it was. I mean, it had to be both English and French. So the courses were both in French or English, and you had to be fluent in both languages because you had to take exams, both oral and written.
You had to be fluent in both, so you had to. Do you speak French then?
A little bit now. I don't use French in my daily life as much as I would, but back then, it was 15 or almost 20 years ago. I could say I was.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, how was it? Did you feel like you're schizophrenic going from one language to another like that, and having to do it?
Do you know what? It's interesting, but it does change. I mean, all the English and French are similar to some extent, which obviously helps a bit, but also that can lead you in the very dangerous areas when you mispronounce something, or you translate, you do the literal translation from one language to another. But yeah, it was a bit challenging, and I speak Polish, so there were also Polish students. So sometimes it was jumping from one language to another. But for anyone out there who is under 35, because I think 35 is the cutoff, let's say, age. And if anyone is considering any EU studies, I would recommend College of Europe, because College of Europe is open to all the nationalities from the European Union, but also outside. We had students from all over the world, from America as well, from Canada. And it's really about, why was the EU created, how it functions, how it has changed, how it is changing, and obviously all that in legal foundations.
Wow, that must have been really interesting. So you did that, you went down through, and so you come out as a trainee for a couple of months. So what is that about? Is that like a practicum, an internship, or what is it?
Well, yes. I mean, when you've kind of finished all your schools and universities, and you want to pursue this career, legal career, and you want to become an attorney, so you want to represent clients before courts, you have to start, working for legal companies, for law firms. So I did traineeships and summer courses, summer internships at various law offices in Poland, and then I started working for a law firm.
Interesting. And so you did that. You went, and then what made you decide? So you're now in your law firm. What made you decide? So if you're going down through it as an attorney, did you focus on intellectual property right away or not?
No, I started as you usually do. I started with more general background and just getting to know, all the aspects of really doing business in Poland and advising clients. But at certain stage of I think my career, I really felt that intellectual property, because it's not, it's not as tangible as real estate, or is not as I don't know, challenging as tax law. Intellectual property really kind of appealed to me, and the complexity of various cases and legal situations and challenges that come with that. It was really interesting because, obviously when we think about intellectual property, we think about trademarks and all the lawsuits and cases to do with trademarks, but it's also intellectual property. I believe that intellectual property is almost everywhere in any and every company, and specifically in tech-based companies, and that's really something.
But they don't, Monica. They don't understand it when they start the company how important the IP is, because they start on the shoestring budget, right? And you don't have money to do much, and then you have to file, provisional patents and all those kind of things, and they forget to do it. But once a company starts to get big and their lawsuits start flying, nothing good happens.
Exactly, and yes, you're perfectly right, and I think that was another thing that really kind of drawn me to intellectual property. That this is sometimes dismissed because, as I said, it's not as tangible as real estate. It's not as fancy as owning real property. But if you don't secure it appropriately in the very beginning, then you may lose your competitive advantage, or you can get in trouble. And that's why I said that the intellectual property, I believe, is everywhere, even in those areas, or even within those kind of companies, they don't really consider themselves as high tech or very innovative companies. But yeah, I still believe that intellectual property can cover and can protect any creative contribution. And with the kind of approach of copyright laws, almost anything you create can be a copyrightable work, and therefore could be an asset in the future. So yeah, and you're right, obviously, that when the companies start, when startups or small teams of of founders or students with a great idea, when they start their journey, they don't necessarily think about IP, but then they don't necessarily have funds to register IP or to protect IP. But I'd say that what is important is, I think, to have this sort of to kind of put IP into your strategy, because you can look for a free advice. You can, when you are a startup company, there's some mentors, or you can apply to join a program when you would have a mentor who would tell you, look, I think this is quite valuable, think about how to protect it, or try to get a consult on this particular issue, because this could be of value in 1, 2, 3 months or a year. So I think that is quite important, to have that approach to your own business. I see that this perception has changed a little bit. I work with startup companies and with teams that I wouldn't even call them startups. They're just teams with great idea. And I always kind of urge them to really think what would be their best asset, and to even try to protect it from the very beginning, even if they don't have the funds for provisional patent or for trademark registration. There are already certain means and certain instruments, legal instruments, that can help you to protect this particular asset. So it gets more and more valuable. And when the investor comes, the investor is looking for that asset, really.
And so what happens? You deal with a lot of companies, and I'm not asking for specific names, but what happens when you give us a story of a company that didn't go down through and pack their IP, and what happened to them, after the fact?
So I think that the most common situation that I encounter, I work for various VC funds or private equity investors, and Poland is, I think, quite renowned for IT/software developers and software companies, software houses. And this actually applies to those IT software houses. As I said, they either don't protect enough their source code, they don't secure their chain of ownership. And by that I understand that, in the end, be it a VC or a PE, they invest in a company. Obviously they look for people, because people build companies, but they invest in company, they buy shares or whatever, and the company needs to own that IP. And the chain of ownership goes back to the founders, to that team of colleagues, team of mates, who devised something interesting over a beer, but then they forgot to just have a written agreement. And
Wow, that sounds like Facebook. It sounds like I mean, what happens in a situation like that? So, they based on trust and those kind of things, but what happens?
Well, and that's I cannot stress enough how important it is when you work in Poland or in any other country in the European Union, because some of the countries, and Poland I think is specific, but Poland, under Polish law, in order to secure transfer of IP, so the assignment of IP from an employee or from a contractor or from a third party to the company, you need to have a written contract, and it has to be like a proper traditional wet ink
So
signature.
you can't have just a conversation said, "Oh, you can pay me money," and it just comes to me.
No, that won't be enough. And actually, going back to your question, we've had some issues. So that's the thing that I encountered the most, that the companies don't pay attention and don't have those contracts in a written form, because they either just have a nice conversation, or they forget to put specific intellectual property clauses, which have to be really, follow certain formulas and use certain phrases to be effective and to be valid. Or they forget to sign it in a proper way, or they use what they think is an electronic signature, but in fact it's not legally recognized electronic signature.
How do you know the difference between the legally recognized electronic signatures, like DocuSign? Is that legally recognized?
Not every aspect of DocuSign. So the DocuSign is actually also very common problem, because in Europe, you have for an electronic signature to be recognized as a what we call a written form, or equivalent to a written form, it needs to be compliant with specific regulation. And you have a list, and most companies that offer electronic signatures, if you inquire, if you push them about that, they will provide appropriate, relevant signature. But yes, I've come across a number of contracts signed with DocuSign.
DocuSign's not valid in the European Union, or
no, they would not be valid in Poland with the basic DocuSign. I think because as far as I recall, DocuSign has several options, and you can get the option that it would be legally recognized in the European Union.
Wow, that must shock those folks, right?
Yes. So you can imagine some of the due diligence reports or due diligence processes when the investor gets a red flag with information that the investor needs to sign kind of confirmatory agreements, or they need to put in relevant warranties into SPAs or any other documents. So but that's the most common. So the misconception that, for example, all you need for a valid transfer of intellectual property is just a sort of agreement over a glass of wine, or just an email exchange. That would not be enough in Poland. So I have to specifically underline that, because that's something specific to Poland, that it has to be written form, and it has to be, as I said, either wet ink or
Is it
electronic.
the same in Belgium, Monica, or not?
I don't know. That's the beauty of the EU, that you have local laws.
Oh my God, how do you go down through and like, deal with each one of the countries? You got different sets of laws, right? Is it hard trying to figure out which law applies or?
Well, there are certain regulations. If it is if a specific matter is regulated by an EU regulation, then obviously that would be uniform throughout European Union. So the rules would be the same, irrespective of whether you're based in Poland or in Spain. But there are still some specificities, and I think copyright law is one of those specificities that is very local. So yes, Poland still requires this, let's say, traditional written form. Other jurisdictions might be more, relaxed about it, and an email exchange or, any other agreement would be enough. But
So, I mean, if you don't have that agreement, you may not own it, and it's hard to get
yeah,
investment then.
yeah,
Have you
yeah.
seen that?
Oh yes, yeah, several
And what
times.
happens?
Well, what happens is that if that's the conclusion of the process, of the due diligence process, in which you kind of examine the company that we want to invest in, if that's the outcome, you can either sign a sort of confirmatory, or sort of an agreement that would that would cure the problem, so that would secure the transfer, and that's if it's possible, if you still have
That
the
means you're willing to take the risk that this may or may not be worth anything. Because if somebody
exactly.
else owns a technology, maybe that company may not be worth nearly what you thought it would be. Right? That
But,
must affect the valuation of these companies too, because it's what are you really buying?
well, to some extent, I mean, if you can cure the situation that you discovered, if you can cure the problem with either as I said, rep and warranties, or a sort of documents that need to be signed by relevant people, then obviously that doesn't impact the valuation that much, because you can, as I said, you can kind of cure the problem. The worst situation is when you have, for example, a technology that was developed over the years, and you cannot, for example, identify all the contributing
Yeah, that's
contractors
what I
or
was going to say.
employees or
What happens?
founders.
Well, if you get a software development company that builds it for you, and you got 100 people doing it, they all have to sign off.
That's more challenging. And then yes, well,
Oh my
it's a
God,
sort of
that's
risk that
crazy.
you are either willing to take or not. And obviously that this is sort of an outcome, I would say, of legal assessment, but also business assessment and risk assessment.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so it sounds like it's complicated, but that's where they have people like you that can figure it out. So, what
Yes.
about coming to the U.S.? How do those companies? What happens to those companies that want to come to the U.S.?
Well,
So let's say they have that. What are the U.S. lawyers looking for from those Polish companies? Are they looking for these documents? The whole thing, is it the same?
well, yes. I mean, when I said I work for, or as Wardynski, as the law firm works for VC funds or private equity entities, we work usually with lawyers, either in-house lawyers or law firms that represent those investors, and some of them are US based. And yes, the legal teams communicate, and what we do is just we go through a number of documents, starting with what we call corporate documents, so how the company was established, whether it employs personnel, or are there other means of cooperation. So we really go section by section, and we kind of, it's a health check, really. It's almost like a health examination of a company. So to get an overall picture of the company, whether it is a sound company, sound investment, or whether there are, as I said, some risks that you can mitigate. I think in every case, in almost every case that that I was involved in, if there was a risk, it was possible to kind of solve it or to mitigate it. So
Wow, that's amazing. Listen, we're coming up to the top of the show already. It's fascinating. Closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you if they're interested?
well, I mean, obviously you can contact me via the website, wardynski.com.pl. You can probably, Google my name. I'm also on LinkedIn. So if anyone has any questions, then I'll be more than happy to answer. And yes, and if you're any time in Poland, in Warsaw, just drop me a line, send me an email. I'm based in Warsaw, but I try to also attend various conferences. Gary, we met really via
Yeah, sure.
InfoShare.
Yeah,
InfoShare.
love your share. That was amazing.
Yeah, that's a
Great
that's a
campus.
very good conference, and that's also the place where where I get to meet all the companies and startups, and that's where I share my knowledge. Check your IP, be sure you have you have your IP correct and sound. So yes, please do contact me. I think LinkedIn or the email would be the most effective way of reaching
That's
me.
great. Well, Monica, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. We really appreciate it.
No.
And thanks to all my audience out there for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. We will be back again Thursday with another exciting edition. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back at you soon. Thank you very much, Monica. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Bye bye.